So several months back, I bought an Intel Arc A750. Pretty good deal for the price. I believe I got it for about $240 something, almost $250. They've actually come down in price. They've been as low as $200. Somewhere around $220 or something like that is where they're sitting at right now. A decent competitor to something, say, like the RTX 3060. Give or take a little bit. There are some downfalls. Part of the problem with a newer or a company coming out with a newer technology to them is there's going to be some growing pains and driver problems and driver issues. We did find that with this. But Intel put out another new driver. Can it fix part of the problem I had before? So we're going to expound on this a little bit. One of the things they bragged about is they had up to a 750% uplift in the Master Chief Collection that's available on Steam, I believe it is. They also touted that there was major improvements in several other DX11 titles, including one that I had a big problem with, World War Z. Now, World War Z was one of the ones that I constantly, when I was doing new hardware, I would benchmark because that was pretty flexible and I could do DX11 or Vulkan. The Arc A750 would not let me choose the Vulkan API to run graphics on or graphics setup, so I was stuck with the DX11. Well, the DX11 worked very, very poorly. You could tell it was having issues. It would stutter a lot. It wasn't using the full power of the card. It was having problems rendering, and it presented itself very, very poorly. There's supposed to be a 113% increase in the performance from the old driver to the new driver. Supposed to be. Now, it's quite possible that it's 113% of what it was before. But as we're going to go over these a little bit, we're going to go over these numbers and I'll show you a couple of charts here. That didn't quite work out to be true. See, now, it was in some cases smoother and it did use a little bit more power. But what I did find is it still didn't use the full capability of the graphics card. And it still clipped and limited, and I still had some bad stutters in some places. Now, overall, there was some improvement. I went from starting out 1440p Ultra. It was using more of the power. It was rendering a little bit better. And I went from about 58 frames per second to about 67. That kind of really was strange because Ultra and High were pretty close to the same, and in the 1440 I actually lost performance. So even though it was slightly better than the previous driver, it still went down, and it was not a great experience. We still had a lot of stuttering, and it was very, very difficult to watch. There was some improvement when I got down to medium and low, and things were a little bit better, and it didn't stutter quite as much. 1080p was much better. I went from about 60 frames per second or 61 frames per second to 77, or I believe it was 75 or 77 or something like that. I'll post the charts up here. So it was an improvement because I was stuck around these 60 frames per second on the previous drivers, and now we're getting closer to the upper 70s and lower 80s. And it was a little bit easier as I got to 1080p medium and 1080p low. It was actually, I would say it was probably playable. The benchmark still had a little bit of stuttering, but it wasn't nearly as bad as on 1440. Now, it's still not using as much power as it should. It's still not taking advantage of things, and it still looks like it's clipping, and it still looks like it's trying to, that stuttering is actually where it's trying to render two different frames. And when you slow the video down, and if I get lucky, I might be able to do it here, but when you slow the video down, you're actually seeing two different images, and it just doesn't work out well. It looks like a great big stuttery mess. The temperatures were very good. I have to give it to that. I mean, that card has still been maintaining good temperatures. It was very quiet. The whole system was very quiet, but then again, we weren't using a lot of power. Now, when I turned, that was all with VSync off and just letting it go for the max frames per second. When I turned VSync on, it did clean a lot of that up. It still did stutter a little bit, not nearly as much, but it stopped me at about 55 frames per second, whether I was in 1440 or 1080p. Either one of those was the same. They were exactly 55, 56 frames per second. All my tests, average of about 55 frames per second. So is it better? Yes. Is it fixed? No. Can I use it in benchmarks? I don't think so. Am I going to take it out of that system? No. And I'll also tell you a little bit more why. One of the other games that I had a problem with that used to be part of my benchmark suite was Borderlands 3. Now, occasionally I would benchmark this in DX11, and occasionally I'd benchmark it in DX12. It just depended on what the situation was and what warranted using one or the other. Most of the time, it was one of my DX11 titles. World War Z would be my Vulcan title, and a lot of times that was just easiest to manage like that. But both of them could go to DX11, so I could see, I had sort of a comparison between two different APIs to see if there was an improvement. For the longest time, DX12 actually worked worse on Borderlands 3, and I'd preferred to test in DX11. Part of the problem with the RK750 is when I went to go test in DX12 with this card, it locked up. It shut down, it wouldn't boot. I had to manually go into the configuration, change it back to DX11, reboot everything, and then it came up, and I could test that way. Now, it was okay, not great. And I will tell you that the DX11 frames per second and the performance did not get that much better. It still looked good. It still was pretty smooth. There was a 1440 Badass and Ultra. There was a little bit of stutter. Nowhere near like I was seeing on World War Z. But for the most part, the rest of it was smooth. It did ramp up to about 80 degrees Celsius on the graphics card. But I do know that this is a title that really, really does tax the graphics card and makes those GPUs heat up quite a bit. So that didn't surprise me quite as much. It did surprise me a little bit. I was used to seeing about the mid-70s. To see it hit 79 or 80, a little bit of a surprise, but not earth-shattering. It's not anything that I'm going to have to sell the farm for. Now, the good thing about that is, okay, it didn't get any worse. Not really any worse. The better thing about that is now, on a whim, I thought, okay, it hasn't worked before, but I'm going to try it again anyway. And it's sort of like when you get swatted one too many times and, something moves suddenly and you flinch. I kind of felt like that when I went to go enable DX12 this time as well. But it was a very, very pleasant surprise. I went from not being able to run at all to running 60 frames per second on 1440p Badass, which 60 frames per second is pretty decent. Not really any stuttering. Colors were vibrant. It looked really smooth. And it still stayed about 78 to 80 degrees. So it didn't run... didn't tax itself any worse than it was with DX11, but it did look better. It did look sharper. It did look cleaner, and it did run better. 60 frames per second like that, all the way up to about 140 frames per second on 1440 low. And then we went from 84 frames per second up to about 193, I think it was, frames per second on 1080 low. So a drastic improvement over both DX11 and, of course, previous runs of DX12. That is one main reason why this card is going to stay in my machine. The other reason is because it's turned into my editing rig, and it's back over there in the corner where the other chair is. It's turned into my gaming rig because it takes advantage of the AV1 encoder. So where I was spending do a 14 or 15 minute video and it would take me almost 5 minutes to render on my 3060 Ti, this does it in like 2 minutes. That RK750 blows through that with the AV1 encoder, blows through that like it's like it doesn't even break a sweat. It works great. So I will continue to edit on that machine. I will continue to game and stream on this machine until I figure out a better way to do it. I was going to completely swap that machine out, but I do most of my gaming and when I stream, I use this machine. I've already got everything set up, but it was very, very easy, especially with the home server now, to go ahead and drop all those files into the basically a dump file, pick it up over there on the editing rig, use that RK750 with the AV1 encoder, knock that out real quick, drop that into something that I can go ahead and I can either do it from that rig or this one. Just go ahead and publish it and put it up and post the videos. And it works very, very well. It has gotten much, much easier. And in fact, there's sometimes when I might be working on a thumbnail or working on a different video over here, I can go over there and I can edit it on that one. And I can, if I get stuck in one place or another, if I'm waiting for something, it's very easy for me to just to swap back and forth. It's not what I really want to be doing all the time, but it happens. So it happens. I'm very, very happy with that card, especially for the money I spent. It's one of the best purchases I think I've made. And Intel obviously they keep on putting out drivers, and it's a huge improvement. It is light years ahead from where it was when it first released, and I was fairly happy with it when it released. Now, I had thoughts about pulling it out of that machine, but after the first couple of driver updates, nah, it's staying. It's quite happy. It's got a 12700K in there, 12700. It's not a K, I don't believe. It's got a i7 12700 in it. It's got that Arc A750. Does a great job editing, and I'm very, very happy with it. So it's staying. Yeah, my thoughts on if you want a brand new card and you're on some kind of a budget where you don't want to spend $400 on an RTX for whatever, or a upper 3 series or whatever, and you've only got a couple $100 to spend, you're not in bad shape if you end up with one of these Arc A750s, or if you've got a little bit more money to spend on an Arc A770. I'm not going to bash the AMD cards either, because I've got an RTX 6600 XT that I love. It's a great card. Very, very happy with that, and I've always loved like the RX 480, RX 580, and all that. They've always been great. So no wrong way to go there. But I will say that A750, it punches at its weight or maybe slightly above its weight, and I'm pretty happy with it. So that's all I got for this. Just talking about that and giving you guys sort of an update on things that I was having problems with benchmarking. I don't know if anybody was curious, but if you were, there's your answer. The drivers are better. They don't fix everything, but they are better. And at least I can run some of my benchmarks in DX12 without crashing my computer. So that's a good thing too, right? So if you found anything helpful about this video, go ahead and throw a like on it. If you're not already subscribed, please do. I've recently noticed that only about 9%, 9.5%, 10% of the people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you're not subscribed and you found the video helpful, or you've seen more than one or two of them, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Really trying to make it to 1,000 so I can start thinking about getting maybe this channel monetized. That would be amazing. I've got a video coming out soon that will tell you about all my socials and what's going on with all those. That should be coming out pretty soon. But if you don't do anything else, if you don't like, subscribe, reach out on the other social medias or anything like that, just do me one favor, and that's be kind to each other. Just do something nice. Smile, wave, hold the door open, say good morning, just anything. It costs nothing to be kind or to be polite to somebody. And we probably need that more than anything right now, right? Just a little bit of kindness. You never know when the one thing that you do that's nice might be one of the best things that happened to somebody their entire day. It could have been something that really, really, kind of made their day. Or it could have started their day off well. Maybe they're going to do that in turn. They'll tell somebody else good morning, or they'll hold the door open for somebody else or whatever, and you've paid it forward already. So you never know. So be good, especially this time of year. I don't have to mention about the holidays. We all know they're coming, okay? So take care of you guys. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other. And until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, I got laptops going on. I've got the $40 build I've got to worry about turning into a gaming computer. I've got the Omen laptop that I'm reviewing coming up. There's all kinds of stuff. So, but it's coming. And like I said, until I get myself into something I got no business getting into, I'll see you later.